Approximately 500 people in New Mexico die each year from drug overdose.
You can save a life.
Save a loved one.
Save a friend.
Save a family member.
My grandfather, he was born here, right up the road. My grandmother, the same. My grandma and grandpa moved here, I think, in the 70s. And then my aunt next door, and then I have my other aunts next door, then my uncles, and then one of my other aunts.
I have 2 boys and a girl, and 2 beautiful grandchildren, a boy and a girl, and one on the way.
Basically, can't expect to see a family more caring and tighter than ours.
I actually ended up incarcerated at a pretty young age. I've been in the system since I was about 13.
Well, I got started into the party scene, so I kind of started out with like ecstasy and stuff like that.
It was really a tough chapter. Recently divorced, single mom, struggling to get through a career. It was just a tough time in our life.
I was in there for about, I think, about 3 to 4 months, I'd say. In that period of time, I had discovered heroin, and from there it went full-blown. Before I had graduated to the big house, I was in a transitional living home. I did actually good. I did solid for about a good 6 months, 7 months. I was clean. And right towards the tail end, my grandfather died. And that sent me in a tailspin, and at that point I really didn't care.
He was like his father, and so when he lost him, it was complete devastation for him because he felt like he lost his dad. He totally relapsed.
Although we weren't going through the addiction, we had to see him through it. As a sister, I watched it all happen, and that affected me greatly because I didn't want my brother to die or be in trouble, you know.
The most dangerous time for me was when he would get released, and so whether that was 5 days, 2 weeks, maybe a month, I knew that that was the highest risk time for him to overdose.
If they are an addict and they don't use in jail and they come out and use, it's very likely that they're going to overdose when they come out and use.
Well, when someone is incarcerated, their tolerance while they're incarcerated for drugs and alcohol decreases. A person leaving prison, jail is 74 times more likely to die from a heroin overdose in the first 2 weeks post-release than the general public.
Well, me and my best friend got out of jail the same day, and we went to a friend's house, and she wanted to do some opiates.
When you get out of prison, we talk about how we're not going to do this and do that, but life has a way of gravitating you towards those people.
I had just gotten out of jail the first time it happened. Oh, actually both times it happened. I just got out of jail both times.
If you have any period of time where you're not using opioids, whether it's a prescription or heroin, your body's tolerance decreases, and even up to a year after your release, you are significantly at higher risk for both a prescription opioid overdose and a heroin overdose death.
The hardest thing coming out of incarceration, I would have to say, is the company you keep and your environment, you know.
There was a worry always that I would come home from school and I didn't know if I was gonna go to my grandmother's house and find my brother alive or not. And that was hard.
You can save a life.
Save someone you love.
Save a family member.
You can make a difference.
Learn how to use Narcan.
You are more likely to overdose right after you get out of detention.
I want to add on top of that, if any of you shared that you have overdosed 5 times, if any other men in here have overdosed, that jacks your overdose risk even higher. So we're going to talk about how to keep yourself safe.
I had just gotten out of jail the first time it happened. Oh, actually both times it happened. I just got out of jail both times.
Why are you more at risk when you leave detention?
So if you have a history of using opioids and other drugs, I'm not going to tell you not to use drugs when you get out of here. That's not my business. You make the decision to change. So my job is until you decide to do something maybe that's more healthy or better for you, that you stay alive. Because if you're dead, you can't make any changes. So first of all, after you go to jail or prison, your tolerance goes down. If you used before you came here, when you get out, you can't use as much as you did because you're putting yourself at risk. So whatever drugs any of you have used in the past, if you haven't used while you're in here, when you get out, your tolerance is going to be low.
I know that whenever you get out, I hear that people overdose a lot on heroin. That's what I have heard, because they do what they thought they could do when they get out, and it's too much for them to handle.
I also tell people, not only when they have a new dealer, but when they get out of jail or prison, if you're gonna shoot drugs, to do a test shot, to do less than you're used to doing. So, like, significantly less than what you're used to doing before you were incarcerated. And that goes with any, like, that's not just, I mean, this is about opiate overdose prevention, but that's also methamphetamine or cocaine or anything else that you might be using, alcohol, all of it. Alcohol is a respiratory depressant. Heroin and prescription opioids are respiratory depressants. They work on this part of your brain that controls your drive to breathe, and it slows that down to the point where you are not breathing enough or you stop breathing completely. There's also drugs called benzodiazepines. Ativan, Xanax, Klonopin, they call them Xanibars. Xanax, Klonopin, Valium also slows everything down. So when you mix an opiate with alcohol and a benzo, you have the deadly triad in New Mexico. And those are what cause most deaths in New Mexico, are the combination of those three things. Also, when I talk to people who use alcohol and opioids together, I try to talk to people about using the opioid first. If you're already buzzed on alcohol, even a couple beers can make you buzzed, right? You're gonna be taking more risks than you normally would. If you and I are getting out at the same time and we're gonna use, and we know our tolerance is down, we're gonna take turns. So you do your fix first, and then I wait and make sure you're okay. I've got the Narcan. If you don't go out, then I can take my turn. So overdose planning. Like, if any of you do use opioids and you get out and you're gonna be using, have a rescue buddy and have your family member or friend or somebody know where the Narcan is and know how to use it.
She was so excited in her angst to get high when she got home. She did too much. And her boyfriend called me and I kind of coached him through how to use the naloxone.
Also, I would encourage you, if you can, if you have the kind of family and friends where you can do this, is to have a discussion about, hey, I'm gonna go use in the other room. Will you come and check on me in a few minutes to see if I'm okay? And you have the Narcan and you're my rescue buddy. Now you could be my dad, you could be my uncle, you could be my mom, families can have that conversations with each other if they can.
I'd say about 30 minutes later, she wanted to do some more. She went to the bathroom. I heard a thump.
A lot of people who don't have a place to live go to public bathrooms to inject. And whether it's a library or Albertsons, what if I'm in a McDonald's bathroom and it's this big and I'm injecting heroin and I fall out and I fall in front of the door and I weigh 175 pounds and I'm alone? What's gonna happen? No one's gonna get the door open. By the time the fire department gets the door open, I'm gonna be dead. And you can be health educators in your families and friends and tell, if you know people who are getting out, if you know people, even people who've been to treatment for a couple months, or people who have stopped using and are in a Suboxone program or a methadone program. All that applies to them too, because their tolerance is down. So you can pass this information on to your friends and family and be, a little health educator in your community. Amen. You can save a life.
A friend.
A family member.
Learn how to use Narcan.
What is naloxone? And what does it do?
And so I laid her down on the couch and I administered the naloxone, and she just within, I think it took probably 2.5 minutes, she came right out of it.
Naloxone hydrochloride is the antidote for an opiate overdose. Narcan is the brand name of naloxone hydrochloride. So naloxone comes in lots of different formulations. Narcan is the only nasal delivery device with naloxone in it that's approved by the FDA. We have been distributing naloxone to lay people in New Mexico since 2001. This makes it very simple, and really we want to focus on lay people, drug users, their families and friends being trained on how to use Narcan nasal spray.
It's very specifically targeted. It does one thing, it does it extremely well, and it doesn't have any downsides. You can't overdose on it, you can't hurt anybody with it, so it's super safe and very, very effective.
So we have pain receptors in our brain that are like a little target, and when we take something like an opiate, the opiate will bind to those receptors in the brain. And the way that Narcan or naloxone works is that it basically displaces that opiate from the pain receptor in the brain in order to reverse an overdose.
Naloxone is super safe. It has fewer side effects than aspirin.
Narcan is not a dangerous drug, so if you were in question about whether or not somebody was down and out because of an opiate overdose, you could administer the Narcan, and if they didn't have any opiates on board, that medication wouldn't do anything, nothing would happen.
This is only going to work on the opioid. It's not going to work on the other things.
Opioids are a specific class of drugs, and here's a list of what all the opioids are and some street names for them as well. It's mostly oxy, heroin, Vicodin, methadone, and fentanyl is a synthetic opioid that is becoming more popular, that is very dangerous and easy to overdose on.
The message I really want you to get from this is use this on anybody who you think is overdosing, no matter what drug it is, because you never know what somebody has taken, right? Right. And it will not harm somebody if they are not having an opiate overdose.
Save a life.
Save someone you love.
You can save a life.
How do you use naloxone?
It was very scary, my experience with opiates. And I hope not to ever have another one, but if I do, I think I would know what to do now. I'm pretty sure I know what to do now.
How do you recognize an overdose?
We're talking about the signs of an overdose now. So, slumped over, unconscious, and unresponsive. You cannot wake them up. They start to turn blue around the lips and the nail beds.
If it is an overdose, what can you do? Call 911. Clear the airway. Do rescue breathing. And give naloxone. Let's go through it step by step.
When you're in a real life situation, you may not do it exactly like I do it. That's totally fine. Do the best you can. Anything is better than nothing. You might, if it's somebody you love, you're going to be shaking. It's not going to be pleasant. But do the best you can. So the first thing I'm going to do, if somebody's down, I'm going to go rub on his breastbone to make sure that he's out, because he might respond when I do that. Then I'm going to look, listen, and feel for breath. So I'm looking to see if the chest is rising, and I'm listening with my ear and feeling if they're breathing on my cheek. They're not breathing. So the first thing to do is call 911.
You might be worried that if you call 911 and the police come, that you could be in trouble for using drugs or being around drugs. But in New Mexico, we have a law that protects people who call for help. You won't be arrested or charged for possession of drugs, even if you are on probation or parole, or if there is a restraining order against you. Under the law today, you are not protected if you are selling drugs or if there is an outstanding warrant for your arrest.
So what I say is call and tell the operator what you see. Bernie is blue. I can't wake up my cousin. My brother's not breathing. So unconscious, not breathing, call 911. First thing I'm going to do is look into the person's mouth to see if they've puked. An overdose is a poisoning, and sometimes when people overdose, they vomit. So what you do is if you see vomit, you're going to grab what in this case is the left arm and roll them onto their side and clear that vomit out. If any of you would not be comfortable breathing for someone who you just cleared out vomit out of their mouth, I still want you to do something. If you don't want to do breathing, give them Narcan every 3 minutes after you've called 911, because you're still doing something. Chances are if you've gotten to it quick enough, that's going to be enough to revive the person. So if you're not willing to do rescue breathing, still do the Narcan administration and call 911, okay? So let's say there was no vomit in this guy's mouth and I didn't have to sweep it out. I'm going to do what's called the head tilt chin lift first. I'm raising up the person's chin because I want to breathe into their windpipe and not into their esophagus. The first thing I'm going to do is pinch the nostrils. I'll have this face shield on there. I'm going to pinch the nostrils and I'm going to give 2 breaths back to back. Then I'm going to open my box of Narcan. Each box has 2 doses. Each dose is 4 milligrams. It all comes out in 1 squirt. You can't control it. Take it out like this, put it in the person's nose, put it in the person's nose and squirt.
Don't test or squeeze the plunger until it's in the nose. It only sprays once.
And then I'm going to continue rescue breathing. Pinch the nostrils and breathe. Then let go while you count. 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004. Pinch the nostrils, breathe. Let go. 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004. Pinch the nostrils, breathe. I'm going to try to do that for 3 minutes if I can. That's giving the Narcan a chance to work.
If they don't revive after 3 minutes, administer another dose of Narcan. It may take more than 1 dose to revive them.
So they come out of it, let's say, after the 3rd time, boom, they start moving around. What do you do then?
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, hey, Bernie, you overdosed. So I'm going to roll you onto your side. I'm going to grab this arm again and roll them over into the recovery position. It's mostly because they could vomit after you wake them up. So tied to withdrawal perhaps. So I want them, they can't protect their own airway. When you've been out for a couple minutes, not breathing, you're going to be confused, disoriented, scared, you're not going to know where you are, and you may not be able to fully control your own airway. So roll them onto their side and keep them on that side in the recovery position. So this is the position that you put the person in if you are calling 911 and not doing rescue breathing, or when the person wakes up, this is what the position you roll them in. So what I would do is I would grab, this is his left arm, and watch how easily he rolls over when I do this. I'm going to bend this arm and put it underneath his head, and I'm going to move this knee out like this. So this is the position you want to put somebody in when they are revived.
What if you leave before help arrives?
And if he, say he woke me up, or he and decides to bail because he doesn't want to deal with who's coming, he can leave me in this position, and whatever Narcan he's used on me, leave it next to the person so that the EMS knows, fire and medics know that it was a suspected overdose.
What if you don't have any Narcan?
So you know how I've said doing anything is better than doing nothing. If you don't have Narcan, sometimes rescue breathing alone can wake the person up. So if you run out or you don't have any and you're willing to do it, I would do rescue breathing on somebody if you don't have Narcan, because that's doing something. Just call 911 and do breathing for them.
Only naloxone reverses an opioid overdose. Don't shake or slap the person. Don't put ice or anything else in their pants. Don't put them in cold water or in a cold shower. And don't inject them with anything except naloxone. Again, only naloxone reverses an opioid overdose. Now to recap, what can you do for an overdose?
Confirm the person's not conscious and you can't wake them up and they're not breathing. Call 911, report what you see. Make sure they haven't vomited, give 2 quick breaths back to back. Give the first dose of Narcan. Do 1 breath every 5 seconds for 3 minutes. If they haven't been revived, give the second dose of Narcan. And continue that cycle of 1 breath every 4 to 5 seconds for another 3 minutes until you've revived them or somebody with a higher level of training responds to the overdose. You can save a life.
Save a friend.
Save someone you love.
Learn how to use Narcan.
Where can you get naloxone?
My mother would always say, it's better to have one and not need it than need one and not have it.
Exactly. And it's just like a fire extinguisher.
You can get naloxone at a number of places. You don't need a prescription.
All right, here at Travis County, we offer a Narcan kit.
Ask here before you're released. If you can't get it from this detention facility, check with your local pharmacy, your medical provider, doctor, or community health office.
There are 2 doses in there in case you need to administer 2 doses or in case you use it again. There's also a set of instructions if you don't remember how to use them.
You can also check this website for a list of places near you. It's doseofreality/treatment/find-naloxone.
It's astonishing when you revive somebody who is unconscious and not breathing, and within a minute or so they're awake and beginning to be alert and oriented to their surroundings.
Save a life.
A friend.
A family member.
You can make a difference. I've worked with men in the past who are in and out of prison that this is not the total definition of who any of you are as human beings. You're a lot more than just this time frame locked up. You're a million other things. And it's really important to remember that this is just a snapshot of your life and it doesn't have to define what your life is like leaving here. You can succeed.
Amen.
So take care of yourselves, be strong, do the best you can, and don't see yourself as just this. You're not just this, you're all kinds of other amazing things as human beings.
As you leave detention, find someone to support you, someone to talk with, maybe your family or a special friend, someone who can support your success back in the community.
Anna, come make tortillas, Anna, come on.
I'm gonna make it to a I'm making it to a snake.
I would love to say he's out of the woods. I'd love to say that all of them are.
There you go. Good job.
I think there's work and recovery that you have to do every day. And so I encourage him often. Remember, you're amazing, you're beautiful. It's been a process, it takes time, but if you have hope and you believe, we just, we have so much love for each other.
Save a life.
You can save a life.
A friend.
A loved one.
A family member.
Learn how to use Narcan.